Hey guys, and welcome to Rate the Create, a series where I discuss and rate the creation features in video games. Today I will be talking about Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires, a game that lets you kill thousands of enemies effortlessly. Now, believe it or not, Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires is currently my favourite Muso game, though that might change pretty soon, considering the fact that Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires will be coming out this year, which will hopefully not be a complete disaster like the base version of Dynasty Warriors 9. In any case, there's a lot to cover here in regards to creation, but for now I want to talk about the Create an Officer feature. In terms of usability, while it's easy to throw a character together, I do find selecting parts to be a bit of a chore at times. Usually this involves navigating through a list of customizable parts, though thankfully the equipment section does have a separate menu which makes navigation slightly easier, as instead of navigating through a list for a single body part, you can navigate through a list of all the complete outfits and pick the parts you want from each outfit, as opposed to having to navigate through a long list for each part. This can be handy if you want to equip an entire set, but if you want specific parts, I still find it to be a bit of a hassle. I would have much preferred a grid presentation as opposed to a list, as it would have been considerably easier to navigate through. The menus are very text heavy as well, so you have to remember the names associated with each part. Other than those minor gripes, the creation system isn't too difficult to use, so I will give the usability a C. Next up, I want to talk about features in regards to officer creation. While there are only 3 facial templates, there's enough customization options to create a face that looks somewhat unique. You can change the hair, facial hair, mouth, ears, nose, and proportions. It's not the most extravagant facial creation out there, but it gets the job done. Where the game sorely lacks, however, is in the equipment options. There are only 5 features you can change, those being headgear, body gear, arm gear, leg gear, and feet gear. Each piece of equipment exists as part of a set, and some pieces have built-in accessories like capes and jewellery that could have existed separately. This means that if you want a certain torso part, it will come with all the other stuff regardless of whether you want it or not. This makes creating things a pain at times. I also want to note that many of the leg items are shorts, which is fine when accompanied with boots, but using any of the smaller footwear like shoes looks weird, unless you're actually going for that look. Put simply, you can't place gear over other gear in this. If you wear boots on a long-legged gear, the boots may even phase through the pants. Either that, or they will be underneath. I find this to be somewhat aggravating when trying to make certain officers. There are several voices available, and they are all in Japanese. You can also adjust the tone of their voice to make them sound as deep or as high-pitched as you want. There's also the ability to customize your moveset, but in a way it's kinda just picking which character template you want, as combining movesos of different characters often means pulling several weapons out of your arse, so unless you specifically want that, just pick a template and stick with it. Finally, there's the body adjustment, and it's very simplistic. Firstly, you get to select a body type for your character, to make them look slender or muscular. You can also adjust the length of your arms and legs, which is kinda useless and silly unless you want to make a character like Spade from F-Zero GX, who has really long arms or something. You can adjust the weight of the character as well as the head size. Yes, this means you can make a tiny character with a massive head. Put simply, body adjustment in this game feels more like an amusing novelty than a practical creation tool, though at least you can change the weight and body type, which is at least something. Overall, in terms of features, I'm going to have to give this category a D, as to be perfectly honest, the equipment selection feels way too limiting due to only having 5 adjustable parts. It doesn't help that many of these parts have complicated designs too, which means that it's impossible to make characters look exactly like you want them, as well as dealing with the forced colour combinations for each one, which is a huge problem for me. In terms of flexibility, Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires offers a large array of weapons to choose from. As Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires has a huge roster of unique characters, you can expect to see plenty of interesting weapons to equip your characters with. Due to issues related to the movesets, however, you are inevitably going to have clone characters at some point. There is a nice selection of hairstyles available to you, as well as mouths, eyes and noses. Where the game is lacking, however, is in the facial hair. There aren't that many beards to choose from, sadly, so you have to make do with what you have. In terms of equipment and accessories, there's a reasonable amount to choose from, but I'd argue that there's room for so much more. Why can you not equip the main cast gear, for example? All the costumes worn by the original cast should be available for created characters as well, if you ask me. Sadly, this is not the case, however. Overall, I will give this a B grade. On top of the numerous weapons and hairstyles you have available, The game has a decent array of parts to choose from for the most part. I do think there's a lot of room for improvement though in regards to facial hair especially. From an aesthetic standpoint, I find the facials look pretty ugly, though the equipment looks really detailed. I really think the created characters are a mixed bag in this regard. While the models themselves meet the standards of all the generic officers, the facials do not. It's kind of ironic in a way, considering the fact that the game does offer plenty of options to customize facials, but they never really come out looking all that good in the end, regardless of how much time you spend adjusting the sliders. Overall, I will give this a C. Where Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires truly shines is in the functionality category. What are your created officers actually going to be used for? So far I have only touched on the officer creation, as it is the most detailed of all the creation features, but there are many more features that can be customized, and it all connects to the game's scenario creator. What this means is that you can take all of your custom officers and put them in their own scenario, giving them their own factions, soldiers, banners and war horses, which essentially means you get to create your own Muso experience. This is what makes Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires the best Muso game I have ever played, as I have total freedom to create my own Three Kingdoms war, or even a fictional war. It doesn't matter. All the tools are there to make this possible. You can make custom banners and even upload your own logos to be shown on the banners you make. And the soldiers, yes, you get to make your own troops too, though the options are considerably more limited than the officer creation. Custom war horses can be made also if you fancy riding on your own unique mount. All of this connects to the custom unit feature, which allows you to create a faction from several officers and choose the unit's banner, soldiers and warhorse to represent them in the custom scenario you make. Now if this sounds a bit overwhelming, you can just simply use your created officers in pre-made Empire mode scenarios, as well as free battle if you so choose. Overall, this category gets an S grade, since there's so much you can do with each character, especially when you consider the nature of Empire mode as a whole. Finally, we have the limitations category. Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires may quite possibly have the most created character slots I've ever seen in a video game ever, offering a whopping 850 character slots, and you're going to need them if you want to make your own custom scenario. Sadly though, I do have a gripe with the limitations in regards to text, as banners can only have a single letter for their text, which is stupid. Also, the character limit for names can be aggravating when you're trying to make a long name for your character. Ultimately, I will give this category a solid A grade, as even with the text limitations, the fact that you can make 850 characters is absolutely nuts, so you can afford to make all kinds of characters. Overall, I really think that Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires, while not perfect, is definitely some of the most fun I've had creating stuff. It does help that the gameplay caters to my tastes, as I do enjoy mindless beat-em-ups, so having a creation feature is like a dream come true. I just hope that Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires can address my criticisms and make even better creation features.